I'm gonna show this to you two different ways. This is speed ramping. Speed ramping. It's when you take something that moves really fast and really slow, and it creates a lot of energy or it creates a lot of space, depending on whether you're going faster or slower. But the variety keeps things interesting. It adds a lot of dynamic to your video and really allows you to focus on a moment. So it helps to speed past things that aren't interesting and keep your attention on things that are interesting. So we got this video involving two dancers. Now with dance videos in general, we have a lot of motion, right? We are like the third dancer in the room, you know, as I'm filming this couple, that we're trying to make sure that we're not just pointing a camera at them and saying, here's what they're doing. We're trying to do it with them so that when we're watching the video, it feels like we're involved. It doesn't feel like we're on the outside looking in. So there's a particular moment of the video. It's kind of the end of the chorus. It's a big, exciting moment. Let me play that first part for you now.
The only one I see.
So there's this surreal moment where they're prepping for this lift, and right as they reach into the air, it barely even feels like it slows down. But for this moment, there's this surreal moment where they're suspended in the air, and as they're saying, "You're my gravity," as she comes off the ground, it's almost like she becomes weightless, right? So that's a beautiful, beautiful moment in the video. Now I want to show you what the clip looks like without any slowing down. With no speed ramping, this is what it looked like. So it's still a cool moment, it's still a cool lift, but it kind of comes and goes so quickly. It feels like we never really got to hold on to that lift. We never really got to see anything special about that. So what we want to do is we want to create a moment. We're going to take that moment and we're going to help accentuate this one exciting part of our video that we want our viewer to focus on. So here's how we're going to do that. On each of your clips, there's going to be this line that goes across the middle. And you may have played around with this before. If you drag it down, you'll notice your opacity decreases. If you drag it up, your opacity increases. But if you hold Command and click on that line, you'll create a keyframe. It's that little diamond guy on there. And then if you move your clip ahead and create another keyframe, and then you drag one of them down, you'll see there's a number here that shows up, and that indicates your new opacity. That is the value that we are changing. And what we're saying is that this part of the video, we want the opacity to be 100, and at this part of the video, we want it to be 0. So what it's going to do is it's going to calculate everything between those two keyframes, and it's going to move from your first value to your second value. In this case, the opacity over this amount of time is going to go from 100 to 0. And what that means is a fade. Simple as that. So now going back to the clip that we want to slow down, in this one we want to affect the time. So to affect the time, there's two ways that we can do this. One is we can do a harsh speed ramp. So in this case, we'd play the video. Right when she gets into the air, I can cut my clip. I can click on the next clip, right click it, go to speed and duration. And because this was filmed at 60 frames per second, that means that I can slow this down to half speed without dropping my frame rate. So I'm going to take my speed and doing the math, I can slow this down by 40% before you even notice that I've slowed the clip down. My frame rate still fits at 24 frames per second. So now I will go from a fast clip to a slow clip, but it's going to be a hard cut. It'll be moving at full speed, full speed, full speed. All of a sudden it changes to 40%. And here's what that looks like. Boom. One more time. You can see there's almost like a stutter or a jitter right when that happens. You know, you see as soon as it switches to that 100% to 40%, because that's a pretty dramatic change, it's pretty noticeable and it can sometimes be viewed as distracting to your audience. Now I want the time to begin, and then I want it to gradually slow down. I want it to go from 100% speed to 40% speed over time. I don't want it to just immediately change. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna take that clip, get rid of it, and I'm gonna drag this one out again. So now, here we go. So right at the beginning of that move, they've prepped, right? So they're down and they're about to lift. I want the time from when they're on the ground to the time when she's fully in the air to go from 100 to 40% speed. So when we got this shot, we filmed it in slow-mo, which was at 120 frames per second. So it's super, super slow. So if I make a new sequence from this clip, I'll show you what I'm talking about. The whole clip was filmed at 1/5 the normal speed. So it's super, super slow. Now I want this super slow floating effect as soon as he hits the air, but it has to go faster before that happens. So here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna raise my clip here. I'm gonna right click on the clip and I'm gonna go to clip keyframes, time remapping, the speed. So now when I adjust this line, I'm affecting the speed of the clip. So this is 100%. If I raise it to 500%, now if I'm filming at 1/5 the speed, upgrading the speed by 500% should play back at normal speed. Let's see. That's normal speed. Now what I want is right at the beginning of the prep here, I want to make a keyframe. So it creates a little shape marking that I want to make a change right here. Now I want it to go until she is in the air, bam! Once that foot, it's fully extended. As soon as we're at the peak of that movement, by the time we get there, I want it to be slowed back down to 20%. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this little caret here and I'm gonna split it out to here, right where she's at the full extent of her movement. So now I get a little thing in between here and I have two different indicators. So now what it means is that right here, it's gonna begin at one speed. Right here, it's gonna end at a different speed. And at this speed, I wanna slow this back down to 100%. Now because it's a slow motion clip, 100% speed is actually 1/5 of the normal speed. So what I'm gonna do here is now it's gonna move from, and you can see this line here, it goes from 500, and then I dragged out my marker so that between here and here, it takes this much time to go from 500 to 100. And you can see that's where it lands. And now if I wanted to, I can even click this little blue guy in the middle. I can rotate it so that the effect is either more sudden or it happens very slowly over time. I want it to happen very slowly over time, so I'm gonna leave it where it is. And this is just so that it doesn't just go as a hard line and then it's a new speed, but it kind of like eases into that new speed. So it's a little bit more natural, it has a deceleration to it. So now when we play our clip, it's gonna go from 500% speed, which is normal speed, down to 100% speed, which is slow-mo. So here we go. Fast, slow. And then she just holds there in the air. It becomes magical. And now as soon as we take this clip, and maybe we'll cut it here, I'm gonna copy this clip. I'm gonna pull it over to where we want it in the actual video. We'll make sure we drop it onto the correct track. We'll paste it. So now, when we get around here, we wanna make sure that, there we go. So it lands like right on the music there. So we're gonna play it. Fast speed, slow. She just floats into that movement. It is surreal, it is incredible. And maybe what I wanna do here is maybe I wanna happen a little bit slower how much she goes into there. And now what you'll notice is as soon as I change that, if I wanna make this happen a little bit slower here, it's gonna shorten my clip. The reason why it does that is because now that I've made this transition longer, it spends more time at a higher speed before getting down to the slower speed. And if I make the transition happen quicker, I have more of my time is spent at the slower speed, which then lengthens my clip. So in this case, let's get to our original clip. Let's say I want it to happen a little bit slower, then I have to drag out the clip to adjust for the change. I actually don't even like that as much. So I'm gonna just Command Z to get back to where it was. And here we go one more time. Magical. And now what I can do on top of this is I could even nest it. And then once it's nested, I can apply the stabilizing effect. And to make this, and I'll apply it lightly, maybe just 5%. And now what that's gonna do is it's gonna smooth out the motion even more, because it was handheld, it was a little shaky in the beginning and then it got really smooth. So if we stabilize the entire clip, it's gonna sell the effect that we haven't changed anything. It's just one continuous motion, it's smooth, it's fluid, and we're capturing the movement of our dancers. So now let's see how that looks. So just like that, by changing your speed up a little bit, you can change the pacing, the dynamic, the ebb and flow of your video. You keep people interested. As soon as people start to see things that look the same, they're gonna lose interest. But if you can change up the pace, surprise your viewer, you're gonna have something new, something interesting for them at every turn of your video, and they will not be able to look away. Let us know what else you'd like to learn from us, but for now, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. And that's Gratitude Media, baby. Be great, stay grateful.